We've got the first match of the day ready for you. It is going to be Alutemu versus Flurry, so I know you'll all be upsetting Twitch chat as too much casters talking, not enough gameplay. So we're going to get that to that one as quickly as possible. But let's just check out and remind you what the deck lists are for these players. So let's go into Flurry's list and language hacker. Let's just give us a quick breakdown of Rogue. We've seen this list before, but just in case anyone new is watching.
Of course, Raven. So Rogue has a very aggressive game plan. It's trying to kill its opponent very quickly. In some instances, it can stay out in the game a long time until it gets all the resources it needs to just blow up their opponent's face with eviscerates, life shrinkers, what have you, basically. So Flurry's list does include life shrinkers. We have one deckhand and one Bloodseal Corsair. We've been seeing quite a bit of one or two Bloodseal Corsairs hanging around a list to as a nod to Rogue Mirrors. It helps you get some tempo swings, but Flurry is also running a copy of Acidic Swamp Ooze. The benefit of the Bloodseal Corsair is that you can draw it from your deck with Raiding Party and get it more consistently in the matchup that you need it. If we look at the top end, we have Ziliax, Myra's, Greenskin, which some people have opted to exclude, but Flurry has it included. And Ziliax as well as a tool that can be used in the Rogue Mirror, but isn't that beneficial against some of the other decks in the meta right now.
Yeah, I do feel that Flurry has one of my at least preferred lists if I was going into the Rogue Mirror as a primary deck, mainly because I love the Bloodseal Corsair along with the Swamp Ooze, just having multiple ways to actually deal with the Waggle picks, which we've seen be game-winning or game-losing, depending on which side of the stick you're on. But let's check out what Alutemu has available to him. And just a note as well, in case you know the way, Alutemu, you may know him by a different name. He has changed his name for this league, but he goes by Machamp previously as well, so we've seen him in the Asia Pacific playoffs and such, but this list looks very, very similar to me.
Yeah, some notable differences is that Alutemu isn't running Captain Greenskin, and he's only running one weapon removal card, which is the Bloodseal Corsair. He's opted not to include the Acidic Swamp Ooze. Yeah, I mean, the decks, if they do look very similar, and just the choice 1 or 2 or 3 card differences can come into play depending on how the games play out.
Yeah, and it kind of worries me a little bit. It's a tough one. I do like the double weapon removal, especially for the mirror, of course, but there are 2 deadly poisons which have a roundabout way counter the double weapon removal from your opponent, because your extra deadly poison kind of acts like an extra dangerous weapon, right?
Right.
So it's not 100% true, but it helps a lot.
Right, you can use Deadly Poison just on your natural hero power instead of going all in on your Waggle pick. Throwing on a Deadly or Poison or 2 onto your Waggle pick and having it removed can be quite a problem in this matchup. So we've seen players often play Deadly Poison just on their normal weapon to remove an SI7 agent or a Dread Corsair and hold their Waggle pick until later on in the game where they can get some value off of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. We've seen I think one of the highlights for me, at least in these Rogue matchups, is just how players play when they know their opponents have a lot of weapon removal, and how they just sort of mete out those weapons, and when they actually use them, how they use Deadly Poison. We've seen turns where they just skip playing Waggle pick, and even though it seems pretty decent, but it's just to get more value out of it later. We saw it near the end of yesterday, as we see the players getting ready now. We saw at I think the end of yesterday, where there was I'll play this Waggle pick because I know it's very likely to be killed, to have the backup, and then once you've seen the removal, you go in with the Deadly Poisons and make a massive, massive weapon.
Yeah, I remember seeing the Waggle pick as like an 8 attack weapon. It's very scary. 8 attack, 2 swings, that's 16 damage.
It's over 50% of your starting life total is effectively 3 cards, but one of them you draw extremely consistently due to cards like Raiding Party, mainly. But let's go into game number 1. No more messing about again. One last time, I'll apologize for the slight delay we had in getting cooking, but we've got it started now. It's Flurry versus Alutemu in the Rogue Mirror. Let's take a look at these opening hands, language hacker.
You remember how yesterday you kept making notes that Evil Miscreant somehow happens to always find its way into the Rogue's opening hand? It's insane. So from Flurry's side, he is on the coin. He does have the Miscreant ready if he wants to coin that out now to get the lackeys. On Alutemu's side, obviously, he's not on the coin, he's on the play, so the Miscreant's going to be a bit harder to activate.
Yeah, I do like the coin into Miscreant here, especially because there is prep, there is backstab, all of these things that can continue to activate cards, and that once you get into the turn 4 plus territory, your lackeys also activate anything very easily as well. Right. So this is just the start, I think, outside of course, a silly Van Cleef, right? Yes, you want that every game, but it doesn't happen. But outside of that, I think just coin Miscreant in the mirror is a fantastic opening.
Yeah, it just gives you options to work with over the next few few turns, and it lets you plan out what you want to do based on the other cards you have in your hand. Alutemu here is at a bit of a decision point. He can now, with the drawn backstab, activate his miscreen if he so chooses, but he could opt to just remove Flurry's miscreen instead if he wants to go backstab SI7 agent and use his dagger swing to kill the 5 health miscreen.
I think I like that, to be honest, because killing the miscreant, especially whilst developing a 3-3, nullifies a lot of the threat from the lackeys that Flurry will get. So normally a very powerful, even fallback plan is that if you get Witchy Lackey, where you can evolve a bad statted 3-drop into a non-aggressive statted 3-drop, I'll say. It's definitely not a bad stat, but you can evolve it into a 4-drop, which is very powerful, and you still develop the minion. If it can gain +1 attack and rush, still it's a high health minion with now 2 attack instead of 1. So I generally would like to see the SI here from Alutemu, but he's kind of gone halfway in between, used the backstab anyway just to put it down to 3 health, and then just gone for his own miscreen.
Right, another benefit of going for the SI7 there is that Alutemu has seen that Flurry's coin is gone, so he can't equip a Waggle Pick. He could go Dagger Deadly Poison, perhaps, to deal with the SI7 agent if he so chooses, but he does go for the Evil Miscreant to just get the Lackey generation online. The 2 Witchy Lackeys might come in handy here.
Well, there's a worry that they might not as well, because if this Miscreant's cleaned up, then Alutemu will want to proc the SI7 agent most of the time, and using a Witchy Lackey, it's one of the few where you need something already on the board to get some kind of live effect from it.
Right, we see Flurry doing exactly what we talked about, cleaning up the Miscreant. Alutemu does have a Dread Corsair, which normally costs 4 mana, but is discounted because of the attack of his weapon. So he could... Ooh!
That's better.
Yeah, that might be okay. So Flurry is the one who's running 2 weapon removal, so Alutemu can decide if he wants to take a different line or just equip the Waggle Pick he drew. The thing is, developing a Dread Corsair and the Witchy Lackey doesn't actually help Alutemu remove any of Flurry's board. You're just developing your own board and hoping that Flurry can't remove it on the backswing and then push face with the remaining minions on board.
Yeah, so I think taking down this SI7 agent feels good now, because this is the problem, and kind of the same turn that Alutemu could have gave Flurry to consider if he did the SI7 first. Because that's the problem, especially with, as you mentioned, quite rightly, no coin means no coin Waggle Pick, which means the removal gets a lot harder.
If Alutemu wants to kill this SI7 agent, he'd have to either play the Bloodseal Corsair or the Witchy Lackey as an activator, and neither of these you really want to use just by themselves. The Witchy Lackey can be very useful, but the Bloodseal Corsair you also want to save for Waggle Pick later on, or just a weapon that's been deadly poison. Looks like he is definitely leaning towards playing the Witchy Lackey to activate the SI7 agent so that he can clear Flurry's SI7. It's coming close, though.
This guy's tough.
And, already you see kind of, I won't say it's too much of a punish, but the effect of sometimes your lackeys aren't great if you don't have the minions already on the board.
Right.
And it would have been the same for the Rush Lackey, right? Like, it would have just had to have been a 1-mana 1/1 activate SI7 agent.
Which, I mean, using the lackeys without actually... They still serve a purpose here because they do activate the combo, but you don't get the value off of them. Flurry has the Faceless Summon and the Goblin Lackey, so it'll be a bit easier to use those. But based on the lackeys that Alutemu got, it was kind of awkward.
Ooh, okay, a 2-mana 2/3, that's definitely not bad. And also, especially with the, not going to use it this turn, but when you can +1 attack and rush, suddenly it's a 2-mana 3/3 that's knocking around on the board, putting a little bit more damage.
Flurry taking a massive lead here on board. Well, I say a massive, there's 3 minions, but in the Rogue Mirrors, things can get out of hand very quickly. So
any lead is a big lead.
Yeah. Because as soon as someone starts equipping a Waggle Pick and going face, you blink a couple times and you wind up dead and the game's over.
So many options.
Flurry does have to consider, though, the Bloodsail Corsair, the weapon removal.
Right.
Just because what you don't want to do is, you can't always play around weapon removal, right? Sometimes you just play the weapon because it's correct. If it gets removed, well, welcome to the game. But what you can do is not put yourself in positions where the weapon removal completely ruins your game plan. Because sometimes we've seen, if the Waggle Pick effect hits one certain minion, you lose so much damage, you lose a great live effect, it could hit a massive Van Cleave. So you can do something to actually nullify the weapon removal to a certain extent, but sometimes you just have to play your cards and hope they don't have it.
Yeah, Alutemu does go with the Waggle Pick, cleans up the board, deciding whether or not he wants to trade off the trade into the Faceless Summon here. Sorry, the Summoner Faceless Lackey? Faceless Lackey, there we go.
Yes.
He could choose to also, yeah, I like this. As we said, the Dread Crusader is a 4-mana minion, so evolving it from its 3/3 stat line can get you something really nice here.
I had to take a second then, and I'm going to ask you a question, like a funny occurrence question.
Okay.
Do you know the text on that card? Because
Reckless Experimenter?
yeah.
Yeah.
What's the text?
Your Death Rattle minions are
Okay.
2 or 3 mana cheaper, and at the end of the turn, they just die.
Okay, important to just the minions, just because Waggle Pick, it doesn't
Oh,
reduce
yeah,
Waggle Pick,
okay,
right?
fair,
You know, that's all I just wanted to highlight.
Rattle
There you go,
minions.
minions you play. So it is actually only minions on board, so it's still a very cheap minion now, especially after Shadow Step. But
3 mana 4/6.
yeah, but this is what I mean. Suddenly, you know, Alutemu was fighting back with a solid minion on the board, but then the weapon removal shifted back to hand, and now Alutemu has to make some kind of game plan to get him back on the board.
Yeah, Flurry had just drawn that Bloodsteel Corsair, so quite a timely draw, but it let him just push forward on the board, playing up the Life Drinker to develop something more. With a hand like Leroy Life Drinker, Flurry's going to be looking to just keep chipping away at Alutemu until he can find a lethal.
Also, funny note as well, I feel like a rare occurrence, at least for over the past 3 days, is neither player has had Raiding Party, which does change the matchup quite a lot, because the second you see a Raiding Party, you're like, okay, they definitely have a Waggle Pick, because they've either already drawn it or they draw it off the proc.
Right, and they
and they have 2 pirates that could be weapon removal, a taunt, or a greenskin. Normally, or a deck cancel.
Depending on the... Yeah.
But then, you know, you have to play the game with that knowledge, and because both of them haven't played it, the hands are much more harder to read, I would say.
Alutemu's been struggling to maintain a board, and it looks like at 11 health, he might be able... Flurry might be able to just get a win next turn.
This is it, isn't it? Once you're so far ahead in this kind of matchup with no healing, no real recovery techniques, it means that Flurry can now just keep going face, you know, unless there's a really good trade available.
Right. After a certain point, when you're so far ahead on the life total, you can just say, all right, I don't care about board anymore. I'm just going to
whack, whack,
yeah,
whack.
whack.
Especially one Dread Corsair's gone.
Exactly.
And no Raiding Party, and that looks like plenty of damage to me, Language Hacker, as this is just going to be lethal even without the Eviscerate that was drawn there, and it can just go face anyway. There was also the Lackey for +1 damage, something you need to bear in mind.
About the there.
Yeah, the Rush Lackey, even on a minion that can already tap face, is +1 damage. Sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't, but Flurry takes a very quick win there, and you know, I am going to have to just wind it all the way back to, was SI7 Agent and getting the first actual threat on the board as an answer to the Miscreant actually just the all-round better option? Easy for us to say now, but in general, do you think that was the turning point in that game so early?
It's difficult to say. The SI7 Agent, with it is a threat, but at 3 health, a lot of answers could come out against it, so perhaps he thought that he needed something more substantial. He needed some more lackeys and go a bit wider. Maybe he was afraid of just putting 1 minion on the board. That would be a bit easier to remove.
Oh, okay. Well, there's definitely always a lot of options in the Rogue Mirrors as well, especially when both players don't have some of the ultimate hand, but not a Raiding Party, which is the big deal. That was only game number 1, though. Alutemu and Flurry. Flurry 1-0 up. We're going to be moving on to game number 2 shortly, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome to Dalaran. I'm Peter Whalen, one of the designers on the Hearthstone team, and I'm excited to walk you through the most magical city in Azeroth. Dalaran is home to the mightiest mages the world has ever seen, including the very aspect of magic himself, the Dragon Kalikos. This is the perfect setting for the League of Evil to strike, a floating city filled with magical artifacts. Its streets are lined with powerful magical wares of all kinds, and even the statues and tapestries come to life. But while the League of Evil have some tricks up their sleeve, a city of mages is far from defenseless. Mages will, of course, take part in the defense of Dalaran, but they're not the only ones. Hunters, druids, and paladins have all taken up arms to defend their city from evil. Take, for example, the leader of the Dalaran City Guard, Commander Risa. She's a 3-mana, 4/3 paladin minion, and while she's in play, your secrets trigger twice. She's laying magical wards throughout the city, and when she's around, they're twice as powerful. That means Noble Sacrifice will summon 2 2/1s, and only one of them will die. Redemption will summon 2 copies of a minion that dies, and Hidden Wisdom will let you draw 4 cards. But powerful champions aren't the only thing the Dalaran defenders have in store. They also wield a new keyword, Twin Spell. Twin spell cards can be played twice. After the first time, a fresh copy is added to your hand that you can play anytime you want. Unlike with Echo, you won't lose a twin spell card at the end of your turn. This let us make a wide variety of designs. Some twin spell cards, like the Forest Aid, are powerful tools with built-in card advantage. Others are smaller and more versatile. Take a look at Ray of Frost. It's a 1-mana spell that freezes a minion or deals 2 damage to an already frozen minion. On its own, that's a mildly interesting card. It's somewhat similar to Iceland, but this one has Twin Spell. That means you can freeze 2 different minions, the same minion across multiple turns, deal 2 damage to a minion, or follow up a Frost Nova to snipe 2 targets. You have a lot of different choices, and figuring out the right ones is the key to being a great mage. But why Twin Spell? We knew that for the defenders of Dalaran, we wanted a spell-based mechanic. It is a magical city, after all. You'll see a lot of spell-type things on the Rise of Shadows. Minions that grow based on the spells you have, that enhance or recast your spells, and more cards that care about your spell damage. With all these spell-based mechanics, we wanted a keyword that would enable you to get more mileage out of your spells. Enter Twin Spell. This keyword lets you keep a copy of the spell in hand even after you use it, gives bonus triggers for things like Gadgetzan Auctioneer, and makes you feel like you're casting even more spells than normal. It's also just a lot of fun to play. While Rafam and his league have powerful schemes and devious lackeys, the defenders of Dalaran are far from defenseless. In fact, we've saved the best for last. Take a look at the greatest hope for Dalaran, the mighty, the incredibly powerful, Hey, guys? Hey, what happened to the lights?
We're here at the Hearthstone Grandmasters here, and we've had game 1 underway. Alutemu versus Flurry. And Flurry currently leading 1-0 with a very swift rogue victory. But now we're going to be moving on to game number 2. Do you think they're going to switch? We're going to find out very quickly, but do you think anyone's going to switch to their secondary or tertiary decks for this one?
Well, both Alutemu and Flurry seem like their primary list is primed for the Rogue Mirror. And the other 2 decks they have, the secondary and tertiary, both seem to be targeting Mage and Warrior. I say targeting, it's just a 5-card difference. But the cards that they have in the other decks, I don't think will do very well against Rogue.
Okay, well, let's find out what they do. It's a tough one because, you know, I'm looking at Alutemu's secondary deck and there's a second Blood Cell Corsair, and I'm like, the first Blood Cell Corsair is actually removed, so I don't even think he could afford to change that as the weapon hate completely goes to 0 for him if he did. So I'm assuming both players are going to be sticking. So let's see what happens. A double Miscreant in the opening hand, I mean, it's just a given at this point. But Flurry's hand, prep Raiding Party with Miscreant he can do.
You know what he's missing, right?
I don't know.
The leader of the Brotherhood.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant Alutemu's health being on 0. It was the only thing he's missing with this hand. But this is looking mighty fine for Flurry.
Yeah.
And honestly, he could still coin Miscreant, and if he draws Van Cleef next turn, it's
Yeah,
still a very good Van Cleef, because he could even Shadow Step the Miscreant, which
And
is a
throw an extra-
completely, you know, for what, about an extra +2/+2. Whereas Alutemu's hand is just...
Alutemu's hand is going to be kind of difficult to work with. He might be looking at a turn 4, perhaps Deadly Poison to activate either the Miscreant or the Raiding Party, and that'll let him at least combo it out. He could also choose to play the Raiding Party this turn just to get the Pirates in hand and get something going there. He does have Deadly Poison already, so he can develop a weapon in that sense if you'd like.
Yeah, I think I like this because if he draws a Corsair, it becomes cheaper with the Deadly Poison anyway next turn if he feels he needs it. So he doesn't directly need to draw a Waggle Pick, and... in a roundabout way, because Flurry's running double weapon removal, if he equips a Waggle Pick, it's often deal 4.
Yep.
You know, and maybe get the Corsairs out cheap. But
Right.
but it's not as crazy as it is as consistently in some other matchups. But we see now Flurry just going out with the Miscreant, and now he has more options. It's the Witchy Lackey and the Goblin Lackey there.
Oh.
Along with the Faceless, with the Shadow Steps, is just so sick.
Yeah, Lackey Generation is powerful, especially in the Mirror. If you keep having stuff to do before someone starts going face, eventually when that face race starts to happen, if you have more stuff on board, you can oftentimes just come out ahead because you have some extra repeatable damage.
Also, I've got a key question for you, and I'm not sure if you heard that this came up in Worlds, okay?
Yep.
The minion on the far left.
Mm-hmm.
What is it called?
Oh.
Not the actual name of the minion, but what is the animal that it is?
It's a tortoise?
Okay. Apparently, I'm the only one who says tortoise.
Tortoise?
Yeah, and everyone says tortoise, and I did not realize that was a thing. So it's
Okay.
just add it to the shaman list as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
But yeah, I was just wondering. I'm trying to find it.
Interesting.
You know, you're Canadian, so I was trying to see if there was any other regions or places that were going to join me
No,
on
just
the way
you.
you say it. But no, as always, I am alone in most things.
Okay. Prep Riding Party come out from Flurry here. It's turn 4, so we can equip the Waggle Pick with the free raiding party being played.
And already, the only light at the end of the tunnel that may be here for Alutemu is these discovers from the lackeys, because already I'm worried for him.
I think I want to see Flurry trade off the Oasis Snapdraw here. If Alutemu has his one of weapon removal, so Flurry's seen that Alutemu played Raiding Party just naturally on 3 to draw two Pirates, and he's seen one of them being played, the deckhand, so it's possible the other one could be weapon removal or it could be a Dread Corsair. I'd like to see him trade the Snapdraw away so that if Alutemu's weapon removal comes out and bounces back to Witchy Lackey, you can reuse the Witchy Lackey to upgrade one of the minions on board again. But if you trade off the Lackey here to push 1 extra damage, and you bounce the Snapdraw back, sure, the Snapdraw can be played for 2 mana, but I believe the benefit of having the extra Witchy Lackey on board is better.
Yeah, and also 0 mana Witchy Lackey, which means you can actually
Free.
just play it, that plus more stuff
Yeah,
the following turn.
can be
But
used
yeah,
as an
I
activator.
completely agree. I do really like this trade. I feel like Flurry's been playing very solid. He's had some strong hands today, but still, I think his play is just very solid indeed. But Alutemu is going to be needing something magical, to be honest.
He needs to do something here. He can... I think he's going to start with the Lackey. Oh, interesting. Walk the Plank. Actually, in both of these players' side decks, but not in their main decks. Stolen Steel's a little slow. Violet Haze doesn't do a whole lot either. You want... I think Alutemu was looking for something that can be used to fight for board, and neither of those two do that. Walk the Plank is the only one that can
I
actually...
think as well, Walk the Plank with because it's expensive in the Rogue Mirror, in my opinion, but when you can draw Prep, suddenly it becomes Prep, Walk the Plank something, so it's a cheap removal, and then you can continue to develop, and those other 2 options were just not nice. I think Alutemu would have loved Backstab, Eviscerate, just anything cheap and cheerful that gets the job done. Oh.
Alutemu taking a bit too long to decide what to do here.
I'm going to guess he did not finish that turn.
No, I believe he wanted to trade the deckhand and his weapon into the Dread Corsair to kill it off. It's rough having these sorts of hands where you kind of figure out, I need to find some way to turn this hand into a win, basically. And Alutemu ended up deciding on going for the raiding party activation there to draw the Dread Corsair and the Waggle Pick to get a swing turn, but by the time he made the decision, he wasn't able to make the final attacks to kill off the Dread Corsair, and Flurry quickly taking advantage of this by just... Oh, preparation would have been a good card to have here.
Honestly, this is not the first time just this weekend, week 1 of Grandmasters, that we've seen Rope get burnt and things missed. And the problem is, I agree, it was a tricky turn because Alutemu needs to have like a 5-turn plan to win the game right now. He can't just make 1 good turn. It's not enough. And it didn't exist. But even if it doesn't end up being the best turn, you need to have 1 full turn and not half a turn, which what it ended up to being. Because if he'd done anything else that was actually a full turn, it would have been better than that, right? Yeah. Anything would have been better. So I think it's important that the players that may be struggling with this, and maybe even players that aren't, and they might run into it anyway. It's a very difficult situation they're in. But I think you need to maybe even just practice being decisive.
You need to pace yourself a bit better.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Alutemu goes for the Ethereal Lackey here. I would have liked to see Waggle Pick with the double Dread Corsair, which he's doing now. Okay, this makes more sense then. I wanted him to play Eviscerate to deal with Captain Greenskin, but it looks like he's opting up for the Bloodsteel Corsair instead of using the Eviscerate to get rid of the weapon and bounce something back to Flurry's hand.
And maybe even bounce the Greenskin, which after the weapon's been destroyed is almost as good as an Eviscerate anyway, because it becomes a much lower power minion to replay. But, Alutemu has had a really good turn there, and then you've got to think, if he actually finished his turn the turn before, he would be way further ahead.
He'd be in a great spot. Because
he could have guaranteed the bounce as well, because the Dread Corsair would have actually died.
Right. And
so he wouldn't have had to swing the weapon into it, right? So, I don't know.
There are a lot of cheap cards in Flurry's hand right now. With the Edwin pickup, he could try to go for that. I believe Alutemu is only running 1 sap. Actually, Flurry is, yeah, they're both only running one step in their primary lists.
Is the walk the plank from a few turns ago going to be the MVP in this matchup?
He might not even opt for for playing the Edwin. He's looking at the problem with the Bloodsteel Corsair here to get rid of the weapon is that if you bounce the Lackey or the Bloodsteel Corsair, yeah. So that's not the worst thing that could have been bounced. Obviously, Flurry was hoping that one of the Dread Corsairs had been bounced to take some tempo off of the board. But if you bounce an Ethereal Lackey, that's just an extra card generation. If you bounce the Bloodsteel Corsair, it means later on.
This rope's getting close! Is this going to be a fair 50-50 of who's not finished their turns?
No, I believe he got it off.
Yeah, he got it. Okay, so I thought he was potentially going to go for a more complicated turn.
Oh, okay.
But no, he just went for the, still good turn, but just straightforward, just bam, 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 done. I didn't know if he was going to try and use the lackeys
Gotcha.
to get some trades
then
off instead.
Yeah, he would have needed more time for that.
Yeah.
Looks like the Walk the Plank is going to come in handy. There's no prep in hand, though. So that's going to be 4 mana if Alutemu wants to do that this turn. And honestly, he probably has to. I don't see a way he gets through this otherwise.
Yeah, and not so bad because the Lackey was left alive, which means that it just trades into Greenskin and you leave, oh no, 3 power on the board. That's not so bad, and you can play your own Miscreant as well.
Yep. It's not a bad turn. The problem is Alutemu is still going to be on the back foot after this. Snapdraw and Bloodsteel Corsair aren't, the most aggressive, powerful minions, but when you're at 16 health, any damage starts to matter, right? A Leroy will just end up killing you. Another Vis, perhaps.
Wagglepick.
Wagglepick. There we go.
Does have the
Corsair?
Bloodsteel, though.
Yeah. So Flurry does know that there's a 0 mana Bloodsteel Corsair in Alutemu's hand, so he has to kind of plan around that. Interesting. None of these options seem to be quite right. I guess Wanted is the one you want the most because it can be used to fight for board. It's Flurry dumping his hand here, being very aggressive, trying to finish the game out this way, and if it doesn't work out, he still has the Myers to fall back on and try to draw enough burn from the rest of his deck to conduct the game.
And even, Wagglepick's all good and well if the second charge gets removed by Bloodsteel Corsair, but if the first charge kills you, then
good enough.
Enjoy your Corsair in hand, it doesn't matter anymore.
Raiding Party not going to do a whole lot, neither will Headcrack. Blade Flurry,
Flurry?
interesting enough, might be the best of these options. There's no weapon equipped just yet, but you can dagger and use Deadly Poison to get a 3 damage weapon, which could help him clear up the board.
With Backstab, he can actually clear off the Snapjaw as well.
Right. The problem is
Trade
that's your entire turn, and what you're left with is a 1/5 and a 1/1. But maybe that's just what you have to do.
It's better than leaving Flurry with anything, right?
Yeah,
because
that's
like
true.
you said, 9 health, he's just dead. So he'll take
something.
3 and go into just Leroy lethal range. Nothing you can do about it, though.
Yeah, for Alutemu, Leroy is not a card that exists right now. In his opponent's hand.
Yes.
Alright, Blade Flurry making its first appearance in Grandmasters.
Against Flurry himself.
Yeah.
Who is named after Blade Flurry.
So Alutemu recognizing he needs to stop all possible damage coming in, or at least push as much tempo as possible. So he's throwing out the Bloodsteel Corsair to remove the hero power from Flurry, knowing well that a Wagglepick could come down and just bonk him on the head.
This Wagglepick's clean now because he knows the blood cell's back down again, so...
Wanted.
Flurry can do pretty much whatever he wants because I don't even know how Alutemu claws back.
A Life Drinker could help him stay alive.
The problem is the health differentiation
Yeah.
between 28 and 2 is so big that, okay, Life Drinker, taunt and kill the weapon. Flurry's
That's
probably
a lot.
still got time to actually, even if he does all that, Flurry's got time to deal the damage anyway.
He's going to shift here to find the Life Drinker. If he can't find it, he can at least use the Witchy Lackey on the Miscreant to try to find a taunt, a Proud Defender perhaps, an Omega Defender. Senjin Shieldmaster.
He's just got 2, hasn't he?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see him just launch everything else and then set up the Edwin and say, alright, I need to close this out right now.
Might even backstab the 1/1 after the hit. Just to make it... sorry, this is obviously way better. I'm stupid. But yeah, I meant just use up the backstab on your own minions.
It's not a taunt minion.
Nope.
And with that, I think there is no way out for Alutemu here.
If there is, I don't see one, and neither does Alutemu. And that's going to be the series. Flurry taking the Rogue Mirror in a 2-0 sweep. But again, it's just... it's not the first time, and by the sounds of it, it's not going to be the last where we see the rope having a huge impact on some of these players. And like I said, even if you're thinking of what's the best possible turn I can do, the longer you think, which if you don't end up making that turn, then who cares if it was the best turn? You're not going to make it anyway, and maybe it's going to cause some more problems. But that was just match number 1 of 6 we've got for you today. Alutemu taking a loss versus Flurry. We've got a Warrior Mirror coming up, so go and get a biscuit, go and get a drink or something, and get comfortable. We'll be right back.